Hi everyone, this is Rio on Paper, and it is time for my currently inked of January. The last currently inked we did was in November 2023, and I've noticed that I don't necessarily use up all of my pens, of all of the inks in my pens in 1 month. And I figured that's okay. We can just go and ink up new pens whenever the old ones are empty, and maybe 1 month I'll journal a bit more and I can do a new currently inked lineup each month, and maybe sometimes it'll take me 2 months to use up all of the ink in my pens, and that is also fine. But for now I have a completely new color palette. These are the pens that we'll be talking about today. I'm not writing down my 2 black pens again because I'm probably going to keep these inked up for a really long while and just refill them when they're empty. But I will be talking about these 7 pens with you today. I have been using these for a little over a week now, so I can also tell you a little bit about how I'm liking or not liking certain combinations. So that's nice. Last time I had just inked up all the pens, so I couldn't really say anything useful about it. So let's see, where will we start? I'm thinking this one. This is my LAMY Lx Ruthenium. And last month I had that inked up with Diamine Grey. And I found that to be a very dry writing combination. And actually I have a new ink called Pilot Iroshizuko Kirisame. And that one, I really wanted to try out with this one. It's also a gray ink. I like matching pen and ink in terms of color. But it writes very differently, so I really wanted to try that. So the Kirisame means drizzle, which is what we've been having a lot of for the past weeks. So I feel it's a very appropriate January ink. I have this one inked in an extra fine nib, and I love how this one writes. I love how this one shades. I like the color a little less than I liked the Diamine Grey, but I love the flow of this one so much more. So for now, it's a really nice combination. Then we have another combination that I had been wanting to try for a very long time, but I felt was most appropriate for the winter months. So I'd sort of saved this one. This is a Pilot Prera. It is the brown one, even though it's so dark that it looks almost black. And it is a fine nib. And I've inked it up with Dominant Industry Winterwood, which is a very dark brown ink. So it matches really, really well. It has a great flow. It's a lovely ink to write with. It is a bit wet, but it's a lovely ink combination anyway. I don't know if you can actually see that this is still a brown ink and not black ink. It's really hard to see on sort of the preview screen, but it's a beautiful color. You can really... It really gives off this winterwood vibe, so I think the name was very well chosen. Another ink that I personally associate with winter is this sort of very light grayish icy blue. This is a platinum Little Meteor or Shooting Star. I've seen various names. It's a sort of entry-level platinum pen that was mostly introduced to the Chinese market. I bought this off AliExpress, even though it's a Japanese pen. And I'm really liking how this one writes. It's a very smooth writer. I have this one in a fine nib. I don't really know the name of the color of the pen. So that's sort of the problem with these platinum little Meteor pens, that the names are also in Chinese. So I see various translations online, but it is a sort of grayish blue one. And I've inked this up with a Cult Pen's exclusive ink, namely Diamine Chichen Itza, which is part of the Wonders of the World series. And it's a really, really nice ink. I love this color. It's a pretty light color, but it's still dark enough to be legible, at least for me. It's pretty wet. And while I love the shading that gives, it is also an ink that I very easily smudge, which I noticed on one of my days when I was journaling. So that's just something to take into consideration. But I really like the color, very wintry. Then we have a Sailor Compass. It is the red one, in case you didn't see how red this is. It's a medium fine nib, and I've inked this up with Rora and Klingner Morinda. And Morinda is a very punchy, bright red ink that doesn't have any of the green sheen that a lot of bright red inks tend to have. It really has no sheen at all, which I think is makes for a really pretty, all-round, very usable ink. I have noted, however, that this ink is very wet, and I don't really enjoy writing with this so much in this medium fine nib. I think it would work better in a fine or an extra fine maybe. So I probably will try that at some point. But it does flow really, really well. There we go. And you might not necessarily associate this red color with winter. But one of the things, when I think of winter imagery, I think of snowy landscapes, I think of gray skies, bare, dark trees, pine trees, so maybe a little bit of green, but also red berries. And that is just a really nice colorful accent, I think, in any sort of winter color palette. So that is why I picked a red one. So I already mentioned pine trees, and I think this one is a perfect candidate for that. This is a Jinhao 82 in the deep sea color, I believe. It's a very dark green with a bit of a sparkle. And I've inked this up with another Cult Pens exclusive, namely Diamine Deep Dark Green. And while I really love the ink color, it's a beautiful dark green that, depending on how wet it writes, and really also depending on the paper, turns from a very light desaturated green to an almost black. It has beautiful shading. But this pen has given me a lot of trouble. It is starting to write a little better, so I don't think there's anything specifically wrong with the nib, but maybe there is still some sort of gunk from the production process left in the feed or in the nib or somewhere in the pen, because this has given me a lot of hard starts. It's been writing a bit inconsistently, so I think that what I'm going to try after this month is just emptying this one out and giving this a very good rinse and seeing if that makes it better. Last month, I also wrote with a Jinhao 82 in a different color, so a different pen, and that one wrote so incredibly well. It was one of my favorite pens of the month, so I had really high expectations of this one, but until now, I'm not enjoying it as much as I would have hoped to. But I also think that it's something that's fixable, so we're just gonna keep trying. Then the second to last pen is this one. It's a Pilot Kaküno that I'm gonna agitate for a bit. because I have a shimmer ink in this one. I love using a clear demonstrator for my shimmer inks because you can see really well if the shimmer is, if the pen needs some rolling, some shaking, some agitating. And it is a fine nib which handles shimmer pretty well, I've noticed. And in this I have an ink from the Diamine Inkvent calendar, which is Blizzard. Blizzard is one of my favorite inks from the Inkvent calendar of this year. It is a grayish blue with a silver shimmer, and you don't really see the shimmer all too well on camera. I also feel that I've already written quite a bit with this pen, and I feel like I used up a lot of the shimmer in some of the first journaling sessions I did. I don't really have a lot of experience with shimmers, so I don't know if that's just how it goes or if maybe I'm doing something wrong. But even that is something that I really like about this ink. It is still beautiful and still kind of special even without the shimmer. So the shimmer is a nice addition, but even if the shimmer is a bit inconsistent during your writing sessions, the entire page will still look very beautiful because it is such a nice ink. It flows well, it's a beautiful color. I enjoy it in the Pilot Kaküno. So all in all, I'm really happy with this combination. And then we're gonna end this session with a combination that I'm really not happy with. This is the TWSBI Eco Indigo Bronze in the extra fine nib that I've inked up with Monteverde Zebra. And even though this is an extra fine, I found that TWSBI extra fines are still quite wet and they write more like a fine in general. And this ink is also very, very wet, and it has been giving me a bit of feathering even on Tomori River paper. And it is so wet that with my rather small handwriting, I find the ink filling up a lot of the spaces between the lines of my letters. So for example, when I write an E, I find that the ink sort of fills up the space in the letter E. So it gets really, really hard to read, sorry. So I'll show you, maybe you can see it in the sample. So this is what the writing looks like. I don't really enjoy writing with this combination, but I do really like this color and I do like the ink. So what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to empty out this pen in an inkwell and use the ink to ink up one of the more drier, even finer pens that I have. And I'm going to see if that makes a difference and if maybe I'll enjoy that more, because I don't think that I'm going to enjoy writing up an entire gigantic TWSBI barrel of ink with a combination that is not giving me any joy, but I also don't want to waste the ink. So I'm going to try and salvage this and use it in a different pen. So that's it for now. That's my color palette. It's, well, I wouldn't say really less colorful than last month. It's definitely giving more winter vibes, whereas last month was more, or maybe I should say 2 months ago, was more autumn themed. So far, I'm really enjoying using all of these different pens, different inks, and just having a bit of fun with it, being a little more experimental and maybe also trying combinations that I think maybe don't work that well, but that might still surprise me. So that's really nice. For now, thank you for watching. As always, if you have any nice ink recommendations or combinations that I should try, feel free to share them with me in the comments. I have a very, very exciting new pen day coming up with a pen that I recently ordered, which will be my first sort of slightly more expensive pen that I bought with the money I got from selling some old stuff from my attic, which was one of my sort of Christmas holidays activities. So that's something that I'm really looking forward to. Not gonna spoil it too much, but I can't film the video yet because the pen is still on its way. So that's something for another day. For now, I wish you all a very nice day, and I'll hope to see you in the next one. Bye!